Shalom everybody. In today's video, we shall continue with the learning of the weekly Torah portion with the insights from Rabbeinu Yoel Haim Benhabib alav shalom. And for this, we are learning one of his books, one of his seforim, the sefer right here, Sefer Aderet Eliyahu. But this is the first book that Rabbi Yoel Haim composed on the commentaries to the Torah. He wrote, as I explained, several commentaries to the Torah, and Besat Hashem, we have started a series of videos. Each week, we will try to do a video according to the weekly Torah portion, the Torah reading, with the commentary of Rabbeinu Yoel Haim. There are many, many things that he wrote on several topics, from Kabbalah, Halacha, Midrashim, Minhagim, many, many other things. But we will choose a few of these gems and we'll share them with you, Besrat Hashem, Zechuto, Shel Rabbi Yoel Haim alav shalom ben Ish Chai. And I will try to bring his learnings also with a modern explanation and comparison, and bring it also to actuality and modernity, Besrat Hashem, for the benefit of all of us. Parashat Noah. Rabbi Yoel Haim explains the pasuk, the verse from Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 6, verse 9, that says the following: Ele toledot Noah, and he calls the attention to the word Noah that is repeated twice, one after each other. Noah, these are the generation of Noah, and it says Noah again. What's going on here? So Rabbi Yoel Haim starts explaining a secret within the name of Noah. We know that in Hebrew, the name for Noah is composed of two letters, Nun, Het. And there's a play of words here that if you switch the letters, it will tell us a little bit about not only the character of Noah, but also how can we benefit from this insight. Rabbi Yoel Haim says the following, and I quote, he says, "It is known that when a person is Noah, meaning at rest, at ease," this is what the name Noah means, rest, ease. So it says, when a person is Noah, at rest or at ease, with internal peace, with calm inside, in his manners and speech with others, then he will have hen. Hen means grace or favor. And hen is when you flip the letters, nun, het. When you flip the letters, het, nun, you have the word hen. So in the name Noah, that means rest, that means ease. When you flip the letters, you have the word hen, which means grace, means favor. So Rabbi Yoel Haim says that when a person behaves towards others with calm, with ease, with rest, with good manners, and the way he speaks also, he says that then that person will receive back hen, grace, favor from the other person, and many people will like him. This is what he says. And he explains and says, thus we saw, when explaining the pasuk at Toledah, he says, the outcome. What is the outcome? He says, Anoh, being at ease, peace, calm, is hen. And hence, the above pasuk, when he says, Ele Toledot Noah, to mean that a person whose mannerism, the way he behaves, the way he speaks towards others, then he will have hen, grace, since it has the same letters as the word Noah. So this is a play with this name when you flip and change the order of the letters. This is a very interesting learning that we got from here. Now he continues and he explains the pasuk from Bereshit, Genesis chapter 6, verse 13. He says, "Qad kol basar ba lefanai, ki malea haaretz Hamas mipneihem." He says, the end of all flesh has come before me, For the earth is filled with robbery because of them. Genesis 6:13. So in this pasuk, remember we are studying Parashat Noah, which deals with the story of the flood, and it tells us that there was so much violence. This is what it says here. And to the point that the Creator decided to destroy the whole earth with a flood. Now, let's look again at the words very carefully. He says, "The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with robbery because of them." Now, Rabbi Yosef Haim stops for a moment and says, what does it mean because of them? What was that the people of the generation of Noah were doing to the point that the Creator decided to wipe out and destroy that generation with a flood? To answer this question, even though there are many explanations the Chachamim bring about the reasons, Rabbi Yosef Haim looks at the word mipeinehem, because of them. And to answer the question, he looks at the word that is right before that word, which is the word Hamas. So Rabbi Yosef Haim says the following. In order to explain the word mipeinehem, we refer to the Midrash Bereshit Rabbah 31:5, where the question was raised about the difference between the word Hamas, which means to rob with violence, and the word Gezel, which also means robbery. So what's the difference between Hamas and the word Gezel? Hamas means to rob with violence, and Gezel means robbery. But why the Torah chose one word and not the other? Rabbi Yosef Haim says, Rav Hanina said that Hamas is not worth a peruta, a penny. So he says, and Gezel was worth a peruta. In the generation of the flood, a person would put out a flask of lupine beans, and another would come by and take what amounts to less than a penny's worth. This way the robber could not be prosecuted. Hashem then told them what they were doing was not proper, and hence he was going to do things for them in a manner which was also not proper. The question here is, since they were careful not to steal anything worth more than a peruta, a penny, how were they judged in the heavenly court? Because we were told in Masechet Baba Metzia 55b that the Bedin will not adjudicate a claim if the loss was less than a peruta, a penny. Additionally, how could we explain what we were told in Masechet Sanhedrin 108a, that their fate was sealed because of Gezel, robbery, which has worth more than a peruta, a penny? These are a few questions here. Rabbi Yosef Haim is asking what's going on, what's the difference between this word, Hamas, Gezel. He said Hamas means robbery, but there's an idea here that means robbery with violence. And Gezel is the word for robbery in itself. So he says that the people of the generation of the flood, among the many things that they used to do was to steal. But these people were smart. They knew that if they were stealing like a lot of things or things with a lot of value, they will be charged, prosecuted. But if they stole a few things, smaller things, less than a peruta, then they cannot be charged or taken to court, because if something is of such a low value, it's not worth to take this to court. Now, there are different interpretations here what's going on, because we know that later on there's a passage that the sages bring from the Talmud that explain, they say, no, these people were charged because of robbery. What's going on here? We know that Hamas is in the reference to a type of robbery that is less than a peruta, less than a penny. And Gezel makes reference to something that is a peruta and above. Now, to explain the above, says Rabbi Yosef Haim, when the owner of an item was looking, the robber would take less than a peruta worth. This way they will not get into a fight and he could not be prosecuted. But when the owner of the item was not looking, the robber would take plenty, and thus it was considered gezel. The pasuk, the verse from this parasha specifically stated, "Ketzkol basar ba lefanai," because all the people were committing what? Hamas, and not gezel. And thus, the pasuk added, "Ki mile'ah haaretz Hamas," which was especially mipeneihem, to mean when the owner of an item was looking. In other words, says Rabbi Yoel Haim, we should not assume that they were taking less than a penny's worth because they were careful about the laws of stealing, but only mi peneihem, meaning when the owner was looking. When he was not looking, they would take plenty. Now, let's stop for a moment. This, a lot of reading here might sound confusing. Let's derive from this learning, from this teaching, let's derive a learning. So, to have this in perspective, Rabbi Yoel Haim is explaining, based on the Mefroshim, that the people of the generation, among the many things that they were accused, one of them was Hamas, the Torah says. Violence. They were stealing with violence. And he said, the Chamim explained that this is in the context, there are two words, Hamas and Gezel, two words to define robbery. Hamas means robbery with violence, but in this context specifically says people were taking things that are worth less than a peruta, less than a penny, let's say in today's currency. And Gezel is a type of robbery that makes reference to something more expensive. Now, the people of the generation of the flood were taking little things here and there, little things here and there, little things here and there. But those little things that they were taking, eventually, if you put them together, is something big. Amounts to the point of robbery, gezel, to the point of being condemned, to the point that Hashem said, that's it. This is enough for this generation. I'm tired of these people. And that's why it says, that's what the pasuk clearly says, because the earth is filled with robbery because of them. Now, from this, we have to explain something. There are people in every generation, but even today, people that think that when you steal something small that has not a lot of value, that's not called robbery. That's what people think. Some people think that if you steal something, if I steal a pencil, if I steal a pen, if I steal $1 or something like that, that in other people's eye maybe doesn't have that a lot of worth compared to someone who steals a car or steals a horse, for example, or steals something of value, of gold or silver, for example. The people who steal little things, sometimes they go to someone else's house and they see, oh wow, what a beautiful decoration, and they take it. If they see a pencil somewhere, they take it. If they see that is money somewhere, they don't take all the money, but they take something. That way they think, oh, I'm not stealing. This is just a little thing. It's insignificant, it doesn't matter. No. But the Ben Ish Chai is coming to teach us is that even little things still is called robbery, and it's called robbery with violence. Why with violence? Because the person did not give you permission to take it. So when you are taking something from someone else without someone else's permission, you are violating the person's rights, and that's why it's taking something with violence without someone else's consent. Rabbi Yoel Haim is coming to explain to us that even if you take something small or you steal something of a lot of value, still is called robbery, still is not right. And still a person will be judged, because if you take something small here, something there, and you spend your whole life stealing little things, if you add up at the end of your life of the person who is doing this, eventually you will have that the amount is a lot and the person is guilty. And if you look all over the earth, people doing these things, then you will have that the earth is filled with robbery. And it says, with violence. It's a violent type of robbery. So you have two types of robbery, like we explained. Someone steals things with a lot of value, gezel, and people who steal little things because they think, oh, it's a little value, it's not important. They're in their own reasoning, they think maybe, or they're trying to justify, and they say maybe this is not even robbery, it's something small, he doesn't need it, she doesn't need it, I'll take it. Or from the father, from the mother, from the brother, from the friend, he's my friend, I'll take it. He's my father, I'll take it. No. Rabbi Yosef Haim says this is called robbery, and a person will be judged because eventually these little things, these bad habits will add up, and a person will be punished. And before the Almighty, this is not right. So even if you steal something small or of a lot of value, still it's called robbery. And this is not the behavior of someone who wants to refine his ethical character. Now, Rabbi Yosef Haim also explained that, or brings and says that another explanation for the word Hamas, this word also means immorality. And we know that there was a lot of immorality in that generation. Bereshit comes to tell us a story of a lot of the deprivation that was on the earth, a lot of immorality, a lot of robbery, a lot of violence, a lot of spilling blood. It was a horrible generation. And this is another meaning of the word Hamas, because as we explain, Hamas means also robbery with violence, or to rob with violence. And this is also called immorality, because the person has no morals. If you take something from someone else without someone else's permission, without someone else's consent, this is called not only robbery and robbery with violence, but it's also called immoral. It's an immoral act, an immoral behavior, an immoral way of acting. Besides that, we can say that there was immorality in the literal sense as well, and fornication and a lot of things happening in that generation. But it's very interesting also the different meanings of this word. And now we can understand why the pasuk is saying clearly, Hashem says that it says Hamas mipenehem. It says because of them, all of this robbery, all of this violence, all of this immorality that is happening. It was a lot of corruption in that generation. To the point he says that Hashem, the Creator, said, the end of all flesh has come before me. Now we can understand the reasons why this parasha in the book of Bereshit, in the book of Genesis, Parashat Noah, comes to explain to us few of the reasons why the generation of the flood was punished. Now we are deriving from this also insightful teaching for us as well, to avoid all type of robbery, all type of violence, all type of immorality. A person must be yashar, must be upright in all his behavior, in all his thinking. Ojo, or sorry, I'm speaking in Spanish as well. Sometimes I speak Spanish, English, Arabic, Hebrew. So now watch at this, because it says clearly that they were doing these things, but these things come from here and from here. Thinking and emotions will lead to actions. It tells us that the generation of the flood, their thinking was also twisted. Their emotions were also twisted. And therefore, their actions were also twisted. So the importance for a person to watch out your thoughts, watch out your emotions, watch out then the things that you do. Sometimes people say, oh, why is it that I'm doing these things? I can't hold myself. There's people who cannot control themselves. Yet the teaching is to be able to fight this, to control, and to be able to fix our actions. A person must look into his thoughts and into his heart, his emotions. So what are you watching that is affecting your thinking, that is affecting your emotions? Who are the people that you're associating with? What kind of ideas are putting in your mind, in your heart? And then the behavior will also be affected. These are things that we have to think deeply from the Parashat Noah, the Parashat of the story of the flood. Rabbi Yosef Haim continues and he says, another explanation for ba lefanai, meaning that it came before me, God speaking, is that even though they stole less than a penny's worth in order to avoid prosecution, their intention was to take more, and we know that there's a lot of people who have bad thoughts and intentions, and God considers it as if they actually committed the crime. In addition, we can also say that they were not judged by the heavenly court, since they would not know the intentions of the people. Only Hashem knows that. And now we can explain the pasuk that says, "Chetzkol basar ba lefanai," before me, to mean that they were judged by God directly. So he says here, and even though, I'm fixing the microphone, and even though they stole less than a penny's worth, it says here, then there, he says, Hashem judged for their intentions, which was to take more than a penny's worth. Meaning, there are people that if they have the opportunity, they will steal things with a lot of value. But because of circumstances, then they steal less. And then someone else might look and say, well, better that they steal something small than if they steal things of a lot of value. Sadly, you find a lot of parents that see that their child has this type of behavior, and they say, well, he's a kid, he'll learn when he grows up, or better that he just is playing, or this or that, or better that he steals just something small that it's not a lot of, doesn't have a lot of value. No, the Hamim come to teach us and say, look, you have to discipline your child. This type of behavior is unacceptable, because eventually it says here, if the person had the opportunity to steal something of more value, will do it, but because of circumstances, they're stealing something small. So there's a lot of things that we can learn here from psychology, of human psychology again. Now, we can bring this as an example also today. There are different types of robbery, for example, or ways to take something that doesn't belong to you. For example, knowledge. There are people who read someone else's books, and then they speak about it, and they speak in front of people, and they give lectures and this and that, and they don't quote the source. They attribute to themselves the learning, the ideas, the insight that belongs to someone else. This is a way of stealing. This is robbery with violence, and it's something immoral. This is the word Hamas. And there are people who quote little phrases here and there from different authors, thinking, something small. No, I will not mention. Or people know, they know who am I talking about. Why, I don't have to mention the name. No. Even in this, we see this is a type of robbery. This is a type of stealing, attributing to yourself someone else's insights and ideas and teaching and learning. It's important to be honest, to quote. If the teaching is yours, okay. But if you are quoting from someone else, attribute, give credit to the source from where the teaching is coming from. This is a way also to be upright, even in your thinking, in your teachings. This is very important. That's why I mentioned before, thinking, heart, and actions. Now, the pasuk continues, or I would like also to add something, that someone with this type of behavior that starts stealing little things, either physical things or ideas or intellectually, etc., eventually will fall into the trap of committing a bigger type of robbery. It says here that someone in this world is not judged until physically has done the action. But from the point of view of the heavenly court, a person is guilty even from his thinking, from his thoughts. For example, someone might think to steal a book, and at the end he changes his mind and says, I'm not going to do it. In this case, He repented. But there are people who say in their minds, I will steal that book from that person. I want that for me. Now, yet he has not taken the book, for example, but his mind keeps thinking, trying to find the opportunity, the way to have the chance. From the point of view of heaven, the person is guilty even though has not yet taken the book, but his mind, his emotions are already twisted. From the point of view of a human court, the person is not guilty because he has not yet stolen the book. But from the spiritual point of view, the person is guilty because they're looking at your thoughts, your emotions. That's why we said before, we have to work the mind. We have to purify the mind. We have to purify our thoughts. We have to purify our emotions, our heart. Therefore, our actions will be straight, yashar, upright, honest. So we have to be honest in our thinking, in our emotions, in our actions. This is a process. It's like what the Kabbalim call nefesh, ruach, neshama, 3 levels of the soul. But at the same time, it could be explained what they call it thought, speech, and action. Thought is mental, neshama. Speech, ruach, wind, has to do with the heart. And action is so when something manifests. So we can explain this in different ways because ultimately we see this as a disease of the soul. That's why I mentioned the soul. It's a disease in the soul, in the spiritual aspect. A person that is stealing things in the physical world means that his soul needs to be corrected. There is something going on, either in his ruach, probably something there, his emotion, his intention, he cannot hold his actions. The person must work also to purify his thought, like I said, purify the heart, purify the intentions. So the actions will be also upright and honest. Now, Rabbi Yosef Haim explained something very interesting here regarding several pesukim. There are many things that we can say here, by the way. There's a lot to share. I will just bring another of his teachings, and it says the following. He's explaining the pasuk on the prophet Isaiah, Yeshayahu 3, verse 9. It says, "Akaret benehem anta bam bechatatam kizdom hagidu lo chihedu." The look of their faces is a whiteness against them, and it declares their sin as Sodom. They do not hide it. Rabbi Ben Naim, Zichrono Lebracha, as well as the Hita, Rabbi Haim Yosef David Azulai, Zichrono Lebracha, in one of his book, Homot Anach, explain this pasuk that an expert in the art of face reading, there are people who are expert in reading the facial expressions of other people, says that they bring the story of someone who was an expert in this art of face reading and look at the face of a great philosopher and saw that it showed that he had bad attributes such as jealousy and desires. The philosopher agreed and said that Hashem granted him that the wisdom to enable him to overcome his defects. Hence, it says here, explain the pasuk that we just read, Hakarat penehem antabam, meant just like the people of Sodom, their facial expressions were a witness to their bad character. But unlike the philosopher, they did not suppress their evil thoughts. Rather, it says, did not hide it. They acted upon them. Now, this is something also very interesting that we are learning. It says that there are people that just by looking at their faces, you can tell who they are. By looking at a thief, at his face, you can see, because the facial expression are like a reflection of who the person is. Now, there are people that they are so crooked, and Rabbi Yosef Haim says here, they have evil thoughts, and guess what? They don't hide it. You can clearly see in their faces that they are charlatans and thieves, immoral people with violence. And it says it like the people of Sodom. They didn't hide their behavior. So you can, it is very interesting. It means that by looking at the face of a person, you can tell what type of person he or she might be. Because the facial expression will tell you if the person is honest. It will tell you his intention, what is inside the heart. And it says clearly that the example should be that even though there are people with some type of behavior that is not good, for example, the example of the philosopher, he had some type of jealousy and desires, for example, and they told him, he said, it's true, but I'm working on it, I'm learning, I'm studying to fix the character. Okay, but the other people, he says here, like the people of Sodom, their facial expressions were a witness to their bad character, but unlike the philosopher, they did not suppress their evil thoughts. Rather, they acted upon them. Meaning there is people that they know that they have this type of thinking. There are people that they know that they have this type of tendency to steal, to do things that are not right. People who get angry, people who are constantly trying to covet someone else's property or someone else's wife or husband, or he has money or this or that, or looking at the neighbor and he's constantly, they have this jealousy and this envy and ayn hara and evil eye and this um, type of behavior and thinking that is not proper. And there's people who know this, but instead of acquiring knowledge, and even though they acknowledge that they have this, they're trying to work to erase or to clean their minds, their heart, and their actions from this type of bad and negative traits. There are other people who, knowing these things, they act upon it. Like the people of Sodom, it says here. Ben Ish Chai explains. There's people who says, yeah, I am like this, I was born like this, I will not change. This is who I am. No, the Chamim come to teach us and say, look, if you know that you have a negative character trait, you have to work on it. You cannot say, this is how I am. You have to work. This is the way to purify yourself, to purify your heart, to purify your thoughts. Your actions must be pure. And a lot of people, they have a lot of struggle. There are people who have, each one has their own battles. Each one has their own flaws that they have to work with. They are wrestling with internally. There are people who might steal, for example. But other people are wrestling with anger. They get angry quickly. And sometimes the face, they cannot hide it. In the presence of someone else, they get angry. Or when someone else says something to them, immediately you can see their face gets red. And the person's looks like it transforms himself or herself and looks like a monster. He wants to kill someone. The Chamim say, look, watch out. By looking at the face, you can tell. You can tell because the face don't lie. Now, what's the proper behavior? To work on these things. To try to clean your heart of all of this negativity. To clean your thoughts. Don't be like these other people, like it says here, who not only that they have evil thoughts, but they act upon them. Don't be like those people. That's what Rabbi Yosef Haim is coming to teach us, is coming to tell us. And that's why it continues here. It says that it's very interesting because Rabbi Yosef Haim says that this generation of the flood, when you look at going back to the beginning, how we started this video about looking at the word Peinei him, Peneihem, that was translated because of them, or mi peneihem, because of them. In reality, when you look at that word, Rabbi Yosef Haim says, look, peneihem also is like panav, face. So peneihem is also an allusion to their facial expressions of the generation of the people of the flood. It's facial expression even of the people today, because we explain that the face will tell us what type of person we have in front of us, what type of person we are, what our face is telling to the world. We have to be conscious about it. Sometimes we're looking at someone else. Oh, look at this guy, how he gets angry. Look at this woman, how she is doing this. Oh, look at that. But wait a second, what about ourselves? We have to also be careful. There are people who are, like I said, quick to get angry. And sometimes they cannot hide it. Their face says everything. Sometimes there are people who are looking with eyes, coveting, desiring things that belong to someone else's wife, husband, money, property, their car, their house, whatever it is, their knowledge, envy. And that you can see in the face. And this is if we go back to what we just discussing, this is called Hamas, and this is called Gezel. It's a type of robbery. So be careful, because your face will tell others who you are, will tell others who we are. So it's better that our face is the face of someone that shows a lot of light, a lot of kedusha, a lot of holiness. Someone who is with hesed, with kindness, with love, with good character, with good expression. That's why the Chamim say, whenever you meet someone, greet him with a smiling face, with a good face, because the expression, the face, says a lot about a person. Besrat Hashem, may we be able to follow the teachings of the Ben Ish Chai, Rabbeinu Yosef Haim. May we continue to be able to continue with this series of videos on the weekly Torah reading, the Parashat ha-shavua, and Besrat Hashem, we be able to fix and to work on our characters. And as we saw, everything starts here, the evil thoughts, purifying the heart, so our actions also should be pure. Do not think, there are two things I want to say before we conclude. One, going back to what Rabbi Yosef Haim explained, that there are people who know that they have this type of negative traits, and yet what they do is that they act upon them, like the people of Sodom. And yet there are other people who are fighting, they have a struggle inside of them. They don't want to behave this way. They are fighting, they're trying to refine themselves. My advice to these people is don't give up. And don't feel bad about yourself, that because someone might think, oh, well, look, my neighbor or someone else is saying these good things about me. If they knew me, that I have a crooked mind or crooked heart, I have things to fix. This type of thinking, up to a certain extent, is good. But thinking too much about our negative or dark side, let's call it that way, is not positive. Why? Because a person eventually may sink into depression and thinking that it has no worth at all, and this and that negative things. What is the teaching that I want to reinforce here? Yes, we have to be conscious of our negative traits. We all have something that we have to fix, things that we have to work on. But at the same time, don't give up. And at the same time, don't think you are the worst of the world. No. We are all born with the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. We talked about this in the previous video. Parashat Bereshit, look at that, what Rabbi Yosef Haim explained, how to work and use the Yetzer Hara and fix it to work on the side of the Yetzer Tov and to unify the heart to serve Hashem the Almighty. So don't give up if you're having a struggle to fix your character, if you're trying to fight angry or jealousy or all the whatever you're going through, whatever struggle you're going through. And don't think that you are the worst thing of the world. No. Ask Hashem for help. He knows what everybody's going through. He knows. Ask for help from the Almighty. Learn. Follow the teachings of the Chamim. Try to improve. And try to hold yourself, to refrain yourself, and not to behave or to do these bad things. Now, there is other people that also know what they have to work on, and yet they act upon it because they justify themselves saying, this is how I am. I yell all the time. I get angry. So what? This is who I am. No. The Chamim come to teach us and say, wait a second, this is not right. Be careful with your thoughts. Purify your heart. Eventually, even though it's not good to have this type of thinking or this type of feelings like hatred or this type of things, but if you refrain yourself from acting, at least you're not going to be judged from this world. Spiritually, yes, there's a lot of things to do, but this is progress. Don't try to justify your actions if you know they are wrong. Be humble, work on yourself, ask help from the Almighty. We have many books, many great scholars that if you look for the right guidance, you will get it, B'ezrat Hashem. I want to thank you all for watching this video. You can share with your friends, with your family. This video will probably, I'm sure, I'm convinced that will benefit not only you, but also a lot of people, B'ezrat Hashem. Thank you for watching, and B'ezrat Hashem, we'll see each other in the next video.